The Ardennes, December 20th, 1944. Dawn creeps over the frost-bitten hills, gray and reluctant, as if the sun itself hesitates to witness what's coming. Snow dusts the ground, muffling the crunch of boots and the clank of metal. Somewhere in the fog, a low rumble stirs, a sound like distant thunder, unnatural and persistent. It's not artillery, it's not planes, it's something else. Oberleutnant Hans Reimer stands beside his 88mm Flak 36, his breath clouding in the freezing air. His gloved hands rest on the gun's cold steel, fingers tracing the familiar curves of a weapon that has never failed him. At 32, Reimer is a veteran of precision, a man who measures life in angles and trajectories. His crew, 5 men, bundled in greatcoats, their faces taut with cold and focus, move like a single organism. They load, aim, and wait. They've done this 100 times, 1,000. The 88mm gun is their altar, and they are its priests. Nothing has ever survived its judgment. "Eyes on the ridge, Miller," Reimer barks, his voice sharp but steady. "Anything moves, you call it." Unteroffizier Miller, the spotter, peers through binoculars, his breath steaming the lenses. "Nothing yet, Herr Oberleutnant. Just fog and trees." Reimer nods, but his gut tightens. The Americans are out there, retreating in disarray after the first days of the German counteroffensive. The Führer's last gamble, Operation Waft am Rhein, has torn through the Allied lines, and Reimer's battery is the anvil against which the enemy will break. His orders are simple: hold the crossroads at Krinkelt, deny the Americans their retreat, and crush anything that dares to challenge the line. The 88s, mounted on their cruciform bases, are positioned perfectly. 2 kilometers of open ground, a killing field no tank could cross. No tank should cross. The 88mm flak gun is a legend, a machine that rewrote the rules of war. Born as an anti-aircraft weapon, it found its true calling on the ground, punching through steel like paper. T-34s in Russia, Matildas in Africa, Shermans in Normandy, nothing has ever withstood its fire. Reimer has seen tanks brew up after a single hit, their turrets spinning into the air like children's toys. He's seen crews burn, heard their screams carried on the wind. He doesn't flinch anymore. It's just math, he tells himself. Range, angle, velocity. The 88 does the rest. Herr Oberleutnant, Miller's voice cuts through the silence, low and urgent. Movement, 1,000 meters, single tank. Reimer squints into the fog. The rumble grows louder, a deep grinding drone that seems to shake the earth itself. A shape emerges, low, wide, and impossibly steady. A Sherman tank, its silhouette unmistakable, creeps forward at a walking pace. The green-gray hull is scarred, caked with mud, but it moves with purpose, like a beast stalking prey. Reimer's lips curl into a faint smile. One tank? Foolish, arrogant. The Americans are desperate, throwing their last scraps of armor into a meat grinder. "Load Panzergranate 39, Reimer orders. The crew springs into action, the loader slamming an armor-piercing round into the breech with a metallic clang. The gunner Schmitz adjusts the traverse, his eye pressed to the sight. The 88's barrel swings smoothly, locking onto the target. At this range, it's child's play. Reimer's seen Shermans die at twice the distance. Range set, 900 meters. Fire. The 88 roars, a sound that splits the morning like an axe through wood. The shell screams across the field, a streak of death traveling at 800 meters per second. It strikes the Sherman dead center. Sparks erupt, a flash of white-hot metal, and a plume of smoke rises from the point of impact. Reimer's crew exhales as one, waiting for the inevitable fireball, the black smoke of a brewing tank. But there is no fireball. The smoke clears, and the Sherman keeps coming. Its tracks churn the snow, its engine growling like a taunt. The hull is scorched, a faint dent marking the impact, but it moves, deliberate, unyielding, alive. "Did we miss?" Miller whispers, his voice barely audible. Reimer's jaw tightens. Impossible. His crew doesn't miss. The 88 doesn't miss. He's seen the math work 100 times: velocity, penetration, steel thickness. A Sherman's frontal armor is 51 millimeters at best. The 88's Panzer grenade can punch through 100 millimeters at this range. The numbers don't lie. "Load another," Reimer snaps. "Adjust range, 850 meters. The crew reloads, faster this time, their movements sharp with urgency. Schmitz recalibrates, his hands trembling slightly. The 88 fires again, the recoil shaking snow from the gun's base. Another hit, square on the turret this time. Sparks fly, the metallic screech of impact echoes across the valley, and yet the tank doesn't stop. It absorbs the blow like a boxer taking a punch, shrugging off the shell as if it were nothing more than a stone. Inside the German position, silence falls. The crew stares, their breath caught in their throats. The rumble of the tank's engine grows louder, closer. 700 meters now. The fog seems to part around it, as if unwilling to hide what shouldn't exist. "What is that thing?" Schmitz mutters, his voice cracking. Reimer doesn't answer. His mind races, replaying every shot, every calculation. The 88 is perfect. His crew is perfect. This doesn't happen. He's read the field manuals, studied the enemy's machines. The M4 Sherman is a tin can, a mass-produced coffin on tracks. It dies. It always dies. "Again," he shouts, his voice louder than he intends. The crew scrambles, loading another round. The barrel glows faintly red from the heat of rapid fire. The third shot rings out, striking the tank's lower hull. The impact sends a shower of sparks into the snow, and for a moment, Reimer thinks he sees the tank shudder. But it doesn't stop. It keeps coming, its cannon swiveling slowly, like an eye fixing on its prey. 600 meters. The civilians of Crinkled, huddled in cellars, hear the thunder of the 88s. They've heard it before, distant, mechanical, the sound of German victory. But today, something is different. Between the shots, there's a new sound, the low, relentless growl of an engine that refuses to die. They whisper to each other in the dark, their voices trembling. "Die Amerikaner, sie kommen." Inside the German lines, Reimer's world begins to fracture. He's built his life on certainty, on the unyielding logic of his gun. The 88 is more than steel. It's a promise. It's the Reich's answer to every enemy, every doubt. But now, as the Sherman closes the distance, that promise feels like a lie. "Switch to Sprenggranate," Reimer orders, his voice tight. High explosive shells, less precise but devastating. If the armor-piercing rounds won't work, maybe raw force will. The crew hesitates for a fraction of a second, long enough for Reimer to notice. They're doubting him, doubting the gun. The fourth shot explodes against the tank's hull, a burst of fire and shrapnel that lights up the morning. The blast should have torn the tracks apart, crippled the beast. But when the smoke clears, the Sherman is still there. Its armor blackened, but unbroken. 500 meters now. Close enough for Reimer to see the gouges in its hull, the scars of his failure. This isn't a tank, he thinks. It's something else. The American infantrymen, retreating behind the crossroads, see it too. They've watched Shermans burn, seen their friends die in those steel coffins. But this one, this thing, is different. "That tank's cursed," one of them mutters, his voice half awe, half fear. "It won't die." Reimer's crew fires again. The fifth shot strikes the turret, a glancing blow that sends a shell screaming into the sky. The tank doesn't even slow. Its cannon fires a single, deliberate shot that lands short, kicking up snow and dirt. It's not aiming to kill, not yet. It's sending a message. 400 meters. Reimer's heart pounds in his chest, louder than the 88's roar. He's never felt this before. Not fear, not exactly, but something deeper. Doubt. The tank is a violation of everything he knows, every rule he's lived by. It's not just steel and tracks. It's a rebuke, a judgment. And it's coming for him. "Keep firing," he screams, his voice raw. The crew obeys, but their movements are slower now, mechanical, as if they know it won't matter. The 88 roars again and again, each shot a plea, each ricochet a denial. The tank keeps coming, its engine alow, mocking him. "What are you?" Reimer thinks, staring at the beast in the fog. What are you? The morning is no longer quiet. The air is thick with the smell of cordite, the scream of metal, the weight of disbelief. And still, the tank advances, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. The Ardennes forest is a graveyard of machines, their husks scattered like broken promises across the snow. Burned-out tanks, twisted artillery pieces, and shattered trucks litter the landscape, each a testament to the weapon that ruled the battlefield. The 88mm flak gun. To the German crews who wield it, the 88 is more than a gun, it's a god. Its roar is their scripture, its precision, their faith. For years, it has delivered death with mechanical certainty, and on this frozen morning of December 20th, 1944, Oberleutnant Hans Reimer still believes in its divinity. The 88 story begins a decade earlier, in the workshops of Krupp, where engineers forged a weapon to pierce the sky. Designed to swat aircraft from the heavens, the Flak 36 was a marvel of German precision, long-barreled, quick-firing, and terrifyingly accurate. Its 9.2-kilogram shells could reach 8,000 meters, shredding bombers with ease. But it was on the ground, in the deserts of North Africa and the steppes of Russia, that the 88 became legend. Rommel's Afrika Korps turned it into a tank killer, its high-velocity rounds punching through British Matildas and Crusaders like a hot knife through wax. By 1944, the 88 is the Reich's answer to every threat, air, armor, or ambition. Reimer knows the numbers by heart. The Panzergrenade 39, an armor-piercing shell, travels at 773 meters per second, capable of penetrating 100 millimeters of steel at 1,000 meters. The Sherman tank, the American workhorse, has 51 millimeters of frontal armor at its thickest. Child's play, Reimer thinks, his mind a ledger of angles and outcomes. He's seen Shermans die in droves, Normandy, Italy, the Low Countries. One shot, one kill. The 88 doesn't negotiate. Another round, Reimer shouts, his voice cutting through the din of his crew's labor. The 88mm gun, its barrel now warm from 5 shots, swings slightly as Schmitz, the gunner, adjusts for the approaching Sherman. The tank is closer now, 350 meters, its silhouette growing sharper through the thinning fog. The crew works with frantic precision, loading another panzer grenade. The breech slams shut, the gun roars, and the shell strikes the tank's upper hull. Sparks fly, a metallic screech splits the air, and yet the Sherman doesn't stop. It rolls forward, its tracks grinding snow into mud, its engine a low growl that seems to mock the 88's thunder. Impossible. Reimer's mind reels, but he pushes the thought aside. He's been here before, not with a tank that refuses to die, but in moments where the world seemed to defy logic. Poland, 1939, a Polish cavalry charge, lances glinting, shattered by his flak battery in minutes. Russia, 1942. T-34s burning under a steppe sun, their crews fleeing into the grass only to be cut down. The 88 has always delivered. It will deliver now. Sprenggranate, he orders, switching to high explosive shells. The crew hesitates, their eyes flicking to him, then to the tank. The Sprenggranate is less precise, meant for infantry or soft targets, but its blast could damage tracks or optics. Reimer's logic is fraying, but he clings to it. If we can't pierce it, we'll cripple it. The loader slams the round home, and the 88 fires again. The explosion engulfs the Sherman's front, a fireball blooming in the snow. For a moment, Reimer thinks it's over. But the smoke clears and the tank emerges, scarred, blackened, but moving. Always moving. 300 meters. The 88's myth was built on moments like this, or so Reimer thought. In France, 1940, a single 88 battery stopped a British armored column cold, leaving 20 tanks burning in a field. In Russia, Reimer himself knocked out 8 T-34s in a single morning, his crew chanting his name like a hero's. The gun's reputation is a living thing, whispered in barracks and feared on battlefields. Allied tankers call it the Hand of Death, a name Reimer relishes. He's seen its work, turrets blown skyward, hulls split open, crews reduced to ash. The 88 is the Reich's certainty, its promise of victory forged in steel. But now that certainty cracks. What is this thing? Miller, the spotter, whispers again, his binoculars trembling in his hands. Reimer doesn't answer. He can't. His world is built on the 88's invincibility, on the idea that no machine can withstand its fire. Yet here in the snow, a single Sherman defies him, 6 shots, 5 armor-piercing, 1 high-explosive, and not a single one has stopped it. The tank's hull is a canvas of scars, dents, and scorch marks, but it moves with a relentless calm, as if it knows something Reimer doesn't. Adjust range, 280 meters. Reimer's voice is hoarse now, his composure fraying. The crew obeys, but their movements are slower, their faces pale. Schmitz, the gunner, wipes sweat from his brow despite the cold. The loader, a boy of 19 named Keller, fumbles the next round, dropping it into the snow. Verdammpt Keller. Reimer snaps, but he feels the same panic creeping into his own chest. The 88 fires again, the 7th shot striking the tank's turret. The impact is deafening, a scream of metal on metal, but the Sherman doesn't falter. It's close enough now that Reimer can see the welds on its hull, the faint glow of heat where shells have struck. 200 meters. The civilians in Krinkelt, hiding in their cellars, hear the battle shift. The 88's thunder is constant now, a desperate rhythm. But the tank's engine is louder, a deep, grinding hymn that drowns out the gunfire. An old man, his hands shaking, whispers to his wife, Das ist kein Panzer, das ist ein Geist, a ghost. The Americans, retreating through the village, pause to watch. They've seen tanks die, too many. But this one is different. It's taking hits like it's nothing, a sergeant mutters, his voice thick with disbelief. What the hell is that thing? Reimer's mind races, searching for answers. The German field manuals, dog-eared and stained, list the Sherman's weaknesses: thin armor, high profile, gasoline engine prone to fire. But this tank doesn't match the manual. Its frontal armor looks thicker, its silhouette squatter. Reimer's heard rumors, whispers of a new American tank, some experimental model, but intelligence reports dismissed them. Shermans are Shermans, the officers said. They die like the rest. Yet this one doesn't. It absorbs every shot, every calculation, and keeps coming. Load Panzer grenade again. Reimer shouts, his voice cracking. The crew moves like men in a dream, their faith in the 88 eroding with every ricochet. The eighth shot strikes the tank's lower hull. A perfect hit that should have torn through the transmission. Sparks fly, the clang of impact echoes, and still the Sherman advances. 150 meters. Close enough for Reimer to see the tank's name painted on its hull. Iron Will. The irony burns. The 88's myth is unraveling, and with it, Reimer's world. He's not just fighting a tank, he's fighting the idea that his gun, his god, can fail. The 88 was supposed to be the answer to everything, the weapon that turned the tide in Africa, Russia, France. It was the Reich's promise of invincibility. A machine that made men believe they could win a war already slipping away. But now, as the Sherman closes the distance, that promise feels hollow. Fire! Fire! Reimer screams, his voice raw with desperation. The ninth shot roars out, striking the tank's turret again. The shell ricochets, screaming into the sky, and the Sherman answers with its own cannon. A single shot that lands close, sending a shower of dirt over the 88's position. The crew ducks, their nerve breaking. Reimer stands frozen, staring at the tank. 100 meters. We were the hand of death, he thinks, until the steel refused to die. Inside the M4A3E2 Jumbo Sherman, the world is a cacophony of steel and fear. The tank's interior is a claustrophobic maze of levers, gauges, and sweating men, lit by the dim glow of instrument panels. The air smells of oil, sweat, and the acrid tang of cordite seeping through the hull. Every surface vibrates with the low, relentless hum of the 500-horsepower engine, a beast that drives the 42-ton monster forward through snow and mud. Staff Sergeant William Haines, commander of the Iron Will, grips the edge of his seat, his knuckles white despite the gloves. His crew, 4 men, each younger than his 28 years, move with the precision of men who know death is close, but they're still alive. For now. The 88mm shells hit like thunderclaps, each impact rocking the tank like a ship in a storm. The first strike, 900 meters out, caught them off guard. A flash of light, a scream of metal, and a jolt that threw Haines against the turret's wall. "Jesus Christ!" yelled Private First Class Tommy Russo, the loader, his voice cracking over the intercom. But the tank didn't stop. The engine roared, the tracks churned, and the Iron Will kept moving. 5 hits now, maybe 6. Haines has lost count. Each one feels like a hammer to the chest, but the armor holds. 7 inches of steel, Haines thinks, and every inch a miracle. "Keep her steady, Kowalski," Haines barks, his voice cutting through the din. Corporal Joe Kowalski, the driver, hunches over the controls, his face slick with sweat. The Jumbo's sluggish speed, 15 miles per hour, slower than a standard Sherman, feels like a crawl under fire. But Kowalski's hands are steady. He knows their mission: hold the crossroads at Crinkle long enough for the 12th Infantry to retreat. It's a suicide order, a lone tank against an 88 battery. But the Iron Will isn't just any tank. It's a fortress, a beast forged in Michigan steel, and it's rewriting the rules of survival. "Another hit," shouts Private Eddie Malone, the gunner, as a 7th shell slams into the turret. The impact is deafening, a high-pitched screech that makes their ears ring. Sparks flare outside the periscope, and the tank shudders, but the armor holds. Malone, a wiry kid from Brooklyn, grins despite himself. "They're pissed, Sarge. They can't crack us." Haines doesn't smile. He can't. His heart pounds louder than the engine, each beat a reminder of the stories he's heard about the 88. In Normandy, he saw Shermans brew up after a single hit, their crews burned alive before they could escape. The 88 is a reaper, a weapon that doesn't miss. So why are we still here? He wonders, his mind racing. The Jumbo was a last-minute assignment, a tank none of them had trained on. Experimental, the brass called it. Thick armor, low speed, they said. You'll need it. Haines didn't ask questions then. Now, with the 88 screaming, he's starting to understand. The tank's interior is a pressure cooker of noise and heat. The 8th shell hits, a high explosive round that bathes the hull in fire. The blast shakes loose a bolt inside, sending it pinging across the compartment. Private Jimmy Walsh, the bow gunner, curses under his breath, his machine gun rattling off bursts to keep German infantry at bay. They're still shooting, Sarge. What the hell's it gonna take? Just keep moving, Haines says, his voice calmer than he feels. He peers through the commander's periscope, the world outside a blur of snow and smoke. The German 88 is visible now, a long-barreled monster spitting fire from a low rise, 200 meters away. Close enough to see the crew's frantic movements, their faces pale dots in the fog. They're scared, Haines realizes. They don't know what we are. The Iron Will is no ordinary Sherman. The M4A3E2, nicknamed Jumbo by the factory workers who built it, is a beast of improvisation. Its frontal armor, 7 inches thick, is nearly double that of a standard Sherman. The turret, reinforced with extra plates, weighs so much it strains the hydraulics. The tank's 76mm gun is underpowered for its size, but that's not the point. The Jumbo isn't here to kill, it's here to endure. And it's doing just that. Hit number 9, Russo calls out, his voice a mix of fear and awe. The shell strikes the lower hull, the impact sending a tremor through the tank. Haines feels it in his bones, a vibration that makes his teeth ache. The armor groans but holds. No fire, no breach, no death. We shouldn't be alive, Haines thinks, but he pushes the thought away. He's got a job to do, and the 12th Infantry is counting on him. The crossroads is a choke point, a narrow strip of road the Germans need to cut off the retreat. If the Iron Will falls, the infantry dies. Malone, load he, Haines orders. The gunner swings the turret, the 76mm cannon aligning with the 88's position. Fire when ready. The Jumbo's gun roars, a weaker sound than the 88's, but enough to send a high explosive shell crashing into the snow near the German gun. It's a warning shot, not meant to kill, but to rattle. Haines wants the Germans to know he's coming. He wants them to feel what he feels, the weight of something unstoppable. 150 meters. Outside, the American infantrymen watch in stunned silence. They've taken cover behind stone walls and shattered barns, their rifles useless against the 88's. But the tank, the Iron Will, is something else. It's taking hits like a goddamn battleship, a private whispers, his eyes wide. The tank's hull is a patchwork of scars, each dent a story of survival. The infantry don't know its name, but they're starting to believe in it. Maybe we're not done yet, they think. Inside, the crew is a tangle of nerves and grit. Kowalski, the driver, keeps the tank moving, his hands steady despite the sweat stinging his eyes. Russo loads another round, his arms shaking from the effort. Walsh sprays machine gun fire, keeping German spotters pinned. Malone, the gunner, hums a tuneless song, his way of drowning out the fear. And Haines, the commander, holds them together, his voice the only thing keeping panic at bay. Sarge, how many more can we take? Walsh asks, his voice low over the intercom. As many as they've got, Haines replies, though he's not sure he believes it. The Jumbo's armor is a marvel, but it's not invincible. Each hit leaves a mark. Dents, cracks, welds strained to breaking. The 88's are relentless, and Haines knows the Germans are as desperate as he is. They're not just fighting a tank, they're fighting the idea that their god, the 88, can fail. The 10th shell hits, a glancing blow to the turret. The Iron Will rocks, the interior ringing like a bell. Russo drops a shell, cursing as he scrambles to pick it up. Stay sharp, Russo. Haines snaps, but his own heart is racing. Every hit feels like a hammer. Every second feels like a lifetime. 100 meters. The German 88 is close enough now that Haines can see the crew's faces. Pale, frantic, disbelieving. He knows what they're thinking. This shouldn't be happening. But it is. The Iron Will is a rolling defiance of everything they know, a machine that refuses to die. And as it closes the distance, Haines feels something shift inside him. Not hope, not yet, but a flicker of belief. Maybe we can do this. The Ardennes is a frozen hell, the air thick with the stench of gunpowder and burning oil. Snow falls in lazy flakes, settling on the scarred hull of the iron will as it grinds forward, a relentless beast closing the gap to the German 88mm gun. 100 meters. The distance is nothing now, a stone's throw, close enough for Oberleutnant Hans Reimer to see the gouges and scorch marks on the tank's armor, each one a mockery of his gun's power. His crew is a machine pushed to breaking, sweat-soaked, frantic, their hands trembling as they load another round. The 88 roars, the 11th shell striking the Jumbo's turret with a scream of tortured metal. Sparks erupt, the clang echoing like a death knell, but the tank doesn't stop. It never stops. Again. Reimer shouts, his voice raw, almost unrecognizable. The loader, Keller, fumbles another Panzer Grenade 39, his fingers slick with sweat despite the cold. The breech slams shut, and the gun fires, the 12th shot hitting the Jumbo's lower hull. The impact shakes the ground, sending snow cascading from nearby trees, but the tank lurches forward, its tracks chewing through the earth. 90 meters. Reimer's world is unraveling. His faith in the 88, a faith built on years of unerring kills, crumbling with every ricochet. Inside the iron will, Staff Sergeant William Haines grips the periscope, his heart pounding in time with the engine's growl. The tank's interior is a furnace of noise and heat, the air heavy with the tang of hot steel. The crew is silent now, their earlier bravado replaced by grim focus. Each hit rocks them, the Jumbo's 7-inch armor absorbing blows that should have killed them 10 times over. "Keep moving, Kowalski," Haines orders, his voice steady despite the chaos. Corporal Joe Kowalski, the driver, nods, his eyes fixed on the narrow slit of his vision port. The 88 is dead ahead, its barrel glowing red from relentless firing. "Malone, give him another," Haines barks. Private Eddie Malone, the gunner, swings the 76mm cannon, his hands steady despite the sweat dripping into his eyes. The Jumbo's gun fires, a high-explosive shell exploding just short of the 88's position. Dirt and snow shower the German crew, and for a moment, their movements falter. Haines doesn't want to kill, not yet. He wants them to break. He wants them to feel the weight of the iron will bearing down, unstoppable, unyielding. 80 meters. Reimer's crew is at the edge of collapse. Schmitz, the gunner, mutters under his breath, his hands shaking as he adjusts the sight. "It's not possible," he whispers, his voice barely audible over the 88's roar. Miller, the spotter, has stopped calling ranges, his binoculars hanging limp around his neck. Keller, the loader, is gasping, his arms trembling from the effort of slamming round after round into the breach. The 88 has fired 13 times now, each shot a perfect hit, each one a failure. The barrel is overheating, the metal glowing cherry red, and the recoil is punishing, bruising the crew's shoulders with every shot. "Switch to gear 38 HL, Reimer orders, his voice desperate. The high-explosive anti-tank round, a last resort, is designed to burn through armor with a shaped charge. It's not as accurate as the Panzer Grenade, but at this range, accuracy isn't the problem. The problem is the tank itself, a machine that defies every rule Reimer knows. The crew loads the round, their movements sluggish, mechanical. The 88 fires, the 14th shell striking the Jumbo's frontal armor. The explosion is deafening, a fireball that lights up the fog. But when the smoke clears, the iron will is still there, its engine growling like a predator closing in. 70 meters. The civilians of Crinkle, huddled in their cellars, feel the earth shake with each shot. The 88's thunder is no longer a promise of victory. It's a cry of desperation. An old woman clutches her rosary, whispering prayers for the Americans, for the Germans, for anyone caught in this storm of steel. The American infantrymen, watching from their cover, are silent, their eyes fixed on the Jumbo. "It's a goddamn miracle," a lieutenant mutters, his voice thick with awe. The tank's hull is a map of violence. Dents, scratches, blackened patches, but it moves with a terrible calm, as if it knows it cannot be stopped. Inside the Jumbo, the crew feels every hit, like a blow to the soul. The 15th shell, another high-explosive round, strikes the turret, the impact sending a shower of sparks through the periscope. Private Jimmy Walsh, the bow gunner, flinches, his machine gun falling silent. "Sarge, how much more can she take?" he asks, his voice barely audible over the intercom. "As much as they've got," Haines replies, though his own doubts are creeping in. The Jumbo's armor is a marvel, but it's not infinite. The welds are straining, the plates groaning under the relentless barrage. Each hit leaves a mark, a reminder that even miracles have limits. But Haines can't let the crew see that. They're his responsibility, and the 12th Infantry is counting on them to hold the crossroads. We don't stop, he thinks. We can't. 60 meters. Reimer's mind is a storm of calculations and disbelief. The 88's field manual, memorized to the word, says a Sherman should die at 1,000 meters. At 500 meters, it's a certainty. At 60 meters, it's unthinkable. Yet here it is, the iron will, scarred but alive, its cannon swiveling like a judge's gavel. Reimer's crew is breaking. Keller drops another round. Miller stares blankly into the fog, and Schmitz hesitates before firing, his hands frozen on the controls. The 16th shell, another panzer grenade, strikes the jumbo's hull. The screech of metal is deafening, but the tank doesn't stop. It's close enough now that Reimer can see the name painted on its side. Iron Will. The words burn into his mind, a taunt he can't answer. Fire! Fire! Reimer screams, his voice breaking. The 17th shot roars out, striking the tank's tracks. The Iron Will shudders, its left track grinding for a moment, but then it lurches forward again, the engines growl, drowning out the 88's cry. 50 meters. The German crew is unraveling, their faith in the 88 shattered. Reimer feels it too, a crack in his soul, a doubt he can't name. This is not a tank, he thinks, this is judgment. The jumbo fires again, its 76mm shell landing closer this time, the blast shaking the 88's base. The German crew ducks, their nerve gone. Reimer stands alone, staring at the tank, his hands clenched into fists. He's fired 17 rounds, each one a perfect shot, each one a failure. The 88, the hand of death, is powerless. And as the Iron Will closes the distance, the world falls silent. The gunfire stops, the crew freezes, and the only sound is the tank's engine, a low, relentless hymn that fills the void. It shouldn't be here, Reimer thinks, his heart pounding. It shouldn't be alive. But it is. The Iron Will grinds forward, a scarred colossus in the Ardennes snow, its engine a defiant roar against the German 88mm gun's fading thunder. 50 meters from Oberleutnant Hans Reimer's position, the M4A3E2 Jumbo Sherman is a rolling enigma, its 7-inch armor shrugging off shells that should have torn it apart. Inside, Staff Sergeant William Haines and his crew cling to their miracle, each ricochet a testament to a machine born not from grand strategy, but from desperate ingenuity. To understand why the Iron Will lives, we must go back to a factory in Michigan, where a man named Glaydon Barnes waged a quiet war against doubt and deadlines. It's spring 1944, and the Fisher tank arsenal in Grand Rapids hums with the clang of steel and the whine of machinery. Major Glaydon Barnes, an ordnance officer with a mind for machines, stands in a cavernous assembly hall, staring at a blueprint pinned to the wall. The M4 Sherman, America's workhorse tank, is a marvel of production. Tens of thousands built, shipped, and sent to die on battlefields from Normandy to Tunisia. But Barnes knows its weakness. 51mm of frontal armor, barely enough to stop a German 75mm, let alone the dreaded 88. Reports from the front are grim. Shermans burn too easily, their crews paying the price for thin steel and gasoline engines. We need something tougher, Barnes thinks, his fingers tracing the blueprint's lines, something that can take a hit and keep going. The idea for the Jumbo begins as a whisper, a side project buried under the urgency of war. Barnes, a man of precision and persistence, has spent years pushing for better tanks, designs like the T-20 and T-23, faster and heavier but too complex for mass production. The Army wants numbers, not experiments. But in early 1944, with the invasion of Europe looming, Barnes sees a chance. The Germans are digging in, their anti-tank guns, especially the 88, reaping a bloody toll. A new report crosses his desk. German field manuals, captured in Italy, still list the Sherman's armor as 51mm, its vulnerabilities mapped in precise Teutonic detail. They don't know what's coming, Barnes thinks. Not yet. The M4A3E2 is born from necessity, not elegance. Barnes and his team at Fisher take a standard Sherman and pile on armor, extra plates welded to the hull, the turret, even the glacis. The frontal armor grows to 178mm, 7 inches, thicker than anything the Germans expect. The tracks are widened to bear the extra 10 tons, the suspension reinforced to keep the tank from collapsing under its own weight. The 76mm gun, standard on later Shermans, is kept, but Barnes knows the Jumbo's real weapon is its skin. Let them shoot, he tells his engineers. Let them waste their shells. The factory workers, women and men working 12-hour shifts, nickname it Jumbo for its bulk, a name that sticks despite the Army's sterile designation. The first prototype rolls out in June 1944, a squat, heavy beast that looks more like a bunker than a tank. Barnes watches as it's tested at the Aberdeen Proving Ground, a muddy field in Maryland where tanks are pushed to their limits. A captured German 75mm Pak-40 fires at the Jumbo's hull, the shell ricocheting with a ping that echoes across the range. Then a 76mm, then an 88mm round from a salvaged flak gun. Each shot scars the armor, leaves dents and gouges, but none penetrate. The engineers cheer, their exhaustion forgotten. Barnes, ever stoic, allows himself a single nod. That'll do, he says, his voice quiet but certain. Back in the Ardennes, December 20, 1944, the Iron Will embodies that moment. The 18th shell from Reimer's 88 strikes the turret, a high, explosive round that bathes the tank in fire. Inside, Haines and his crew flinch, the impact ringing through the hull like a cathedral bell. Private Tommy Russo, the loader, curses as he slams another 76mm shell into the breach. "Sarge, they're throwing everything at us," he shouts, his voice hoarse over the intercom. Haines doesn't respond, his eyes fixed on the periscope. The 88 is 40 meters away, its crew a blur of frantic motion. He can see their fear, their disbelief. They thought we'd be dead by now. The Jumbo's creation was a race against time. Barnes pushed the design through in months, bypassing bureaucracy with sheer will. The Army ordered 254 Jumbos, a drop in the bucket compared to the 40,000 Shermans built, but enough to make a difference. The tanks were rushed to Europe, arriving just before the German counteroffensive in the Ardennes. The Iron Will was one of the first, assigned to the 3rd Armored Division with little fanfare. Haines and his crew, trained on standard Shermans, got a 10-minute briefing. Thick armor, slow speed, don't expect to outrun anything. They didn't know they were driving a legend in the making. "Malone, hit him again," Haines orders. Private Eddie Malone, the gunner, fires another high-explosive shell, this one landing close enough to rattle the 88's crew. The blast sends snow and dirt cascading over their position, and for a moment the German gun falls silent. 35 meters. The Iron Will is close enough now that Haines can see the 88's barrel, red-hot and smoking, its crew staggering from the recoil. The Jumbo's armor is a patchwork of scars, 18 hits, maybe more, but it holds. Barnes, you genius, Haines thinks, though he's never heard the man's name. The civilians of Crinkelt, listening from their cellars, hear the battle shift. The 88's thunder is weaker now, its rhythm broken by long pauses. The Jumbo's engine, a low, grinding growl, is the dominant sound, a hymn of survival that drowns out the German guns. An old man, his hands trembling, whispers to his daughter, "Die Amerikaner, sie geben nicht auf." They don't give up. The American infantrymen, watching from their cover, feel it too. "That tank's a monster," a private says, his voice a mix of awe and hope. The Iron Will is no longer just a tank. It's a symbol, a defiance of the 88's myth. Reimer's crew is breaking. The 19th shell, another panzer grenade, strikes the Jumbo's glacis, the impact sending a tremor through the tank. Inside, Corporal Joe Kowalski, the driver, grits his teeth, keeping the Iron Will moving. Private Jimmy Walsh, the bow gunner, sprays machine gun fire, pinning German spotters. Russo loads another round, his arms shaking from exhaustion. Malone hums his tuneless song, his hands steady on the cannon's controls. Haines, the commander, feels the weight of every hit every second, but he holds the crew together. "We're the anvil now," he thinks. "Let them break against us." 30 meters. The Jumbo's birth was no accident, but it was no grand plan either. Barnes didn't design it to win battles single-handedly. He designed it to survive, to give crews a chance, to turn fear into defiance. In the chaos of the Ardennes, that survival is rewriting the battlefield. The German field manuals, still listing the Sherman's 51mm of armor, are obsolete. The 88, once the hand of death, is a relic facing a new truth. And as the Iron Will closes in, its hull scarred but unbroken, that truth becomes undeniable. "That'll do," Barnes had said, watching the first Jumbo shrug off a shell. In the Ardennes, his words echo in every ricochet. Every meter the iron will gains. The iron will looms at 30 meters, a scarred monolith in the Ardennes snow, its engine a relentless growl that drowns out the faltering thunder of Oberleutnant Hans Reimer's 88mm gun. The fog clings to the tank like a shroud, its hull a canvas of dents and scorch marks. 19 hits, each one a defiance of logic, each one a crack in the German crew's faith. The air is thick with the smell of cordite and fear, the silence between shots heavier than the gunfire itself. Reimer's world, once built on the unyielding certainty of his gun, is crumbling, and the iron will is the hammer. Load! Load! Reimer screams, his voice a ragged edge of desperation. The loader, Keller, barely 19, stumbles, his hands shaking as he rams another Panzer Grenade 39 into the breach. The 88's barrel is glowing red, the metal warped from relentless firing. Schmitz, the gunner, hesitates, his eyes darting to Reimer as if pleading for an answer. The 20th shell roars out, striking the Jumbo's frontal armor with a screech that splits the frozen air. Sparks flare, the tank shudders, but it keeps coming, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. 25 meters. Inside the iron will, Staff Sergeant William Haines feels every hit like a blow to his soul. The tank's interior is a furnace of heat and noise, the air heavy with sweat and the tang of hot steel. The crew is silent, their earlier chatter replaced by grim determination. Corporal Joe Kowalski, the driver, keeps the tank moving, his hands steady despite the sweat stinging his eyes. Private Eddie Malone, the gunner, loads another 76mm high-explosive shell, his hands shaking but precise. Private Jimmy Walsh, the bow gunner, sprays bursts of machine gun fire, keeping German infantry at bay. Private Tommy Russo, the loader, wipes blood from a cut on his hand, the result of a loose bolt shaken free by the barrage. "Sarge, they're not stopping," Russo mutters, his voice low over the intercom. "Neither are we," Haines replies, his eyes fixed on the periscope. The 88 is a dark shape in the fog, its crew scrambling like ants under a boot. The Jumbo's mission, hold the crossroads at Crinkle to cover the 12th Infantry's retreat, feels like a lifetime ago. Now it's about survival, about proving the iron will can outlast the 88's fury. 20 hits and the armor holds. 7 inches of steel, Haines thinks, and every inch a prayer. The psychological war is spreading. Beyond the crossroads, in the German lines, whispers begin to circulate. Reimer's battery isn't alone. Other 88 crews positioned along the Ardennes front have heard of the ghost tank. A single Sherman, they say, that eats shells and keeps moving. In a command post 5 kilometers away, a Hauptmann pores over outdated field manuals, their pages listing the M4 Sherman's armor at 51 millimeters. "Unmöglich," he mutters, dismissing the reports as panic. But the whispers grow louder, carried by runners and radio chatter. A tank that won't die. A machine that defies the 88. The myth of German invincibility, built on years of the 88's dominance, is fraying, and the iron will is the thread pulling it apart. "Fire!" Reimer shouts, his voice breaking. The 21st shell, another high-explosive round, explodes against the Jumbo's turret, the blast shaking snow from the tank's hull. The iron will pauses, its tracks grinding for a moment, and Reimer's heart leaps. Is it hit? But then the engine roars, and the tank lurches forward again. 20 meters. The Jumbo's 76mm cannon fires, the shell landing close enough to shower the 88's position with dirt and shrapnel. Reimer's crew ducks, their nerve crumbling. Miller, the spotter, drops his binoculars, his hands trembling. "It's not stopping," he whispers, his voice a mix of awe and terror. The American infantrymen, watching from their cover in Crinkelt, feel the shift. The 88's thunder, once a death sentence, is now a desperate plea. "That tank's cursed," a private mutters, his eyes wide. "It's eating their shells like candy." The 12th Infantry, battered and retreating, begins to rally, their fear giving way to hope. The iron will isn't just a tank, it's a beacon, a promise that the Germans can be beaten. A sergeant, his face caked with mud, whispers to his men, "If that thing can take it, so can we." In the German lines, the whispers turn to panic. A runner reaches Reimer's position, his breath coming in gasps. Herr Oberleutnant orders from command, "Fall back if the line breaks." Reimer stares at him, the words incomprehensible. Fall back? The 88 doesn't retreat. It destroys. But the iron will is 15 meters away now, its cannon swiveling, its engine a low hymn of defiance. The 22nd shell strikes, a glancing blow to the tracks. The jumbo sways, its left track grinding, but it keeps moving. Reimer's crew is braking. Keller drops another round, Schmitz freezes at the controls, and Miller stares at the tank like it's a specter from another world. The civilians of Krinkle, listening from their cellars, hear the battle's rhythm change. The 88's fire is sporadic now, its roar punctuated by long, eerie silences. The jumbo's engine fills the void, a sound that seems to shake the earth itself. An old woman clutches her husband's hand, whispering, "Es ist kein Panzer, es ist ein Dämon." A demon. The word spreads, carried by fear and awe, a new myth rising to replace the 88's fading legend. Reimer's mind is a storm of doubt. He's fired 22 rounds, each one a perfect shot, each one a failure. The 88, the hand of death, is powerless against this machine. He's read the manuals, studied the Sherman's weaknesses, but this tank, this thing, is something else. German intelligence, slow to adapt, has only just begun to acknowledge an unidentified variant, a Sherman with armor no 88 can pierce. The report, buried in a stack of papers, will reach Reimer's commanders too late. For now, he's alone, facing a truth he can't accept. "Fire!" he screams one last time. The 23rd shell, a high-explosive anti-tank round, explodes against the jumbo's glacis. The blast is blinding, the shockwave rattling the 88's base, but the iron will emerges from the smoke, its hull blackened but unbroken. 10 meters. The tank's cannon fires again, the shell landing so close that Reimer feels the heat on his face. His crew is frozen, their eyes wide with something beyond fear, disbelief. The 88, their god, has failed them. If they can't be killed, Reimer thinks, his hands trembling, maybe we can't win. The Ardennes snow falls heavier now, blanketing the scarred earth in a shroud of white. At 10 meters, the iron will is no longer a tank, but a specter. Its hull a mosaic of dents and burns, its engine a relentless growl that drowns out the world. The M4A3E2 Jumbo Sherman looms over Oberleutnant Hans Reimer's 88mm gun, a machine that has fired 23 rounds, each a perfect shot, each a failure. The air is thick with cordite and despair, the silence between shots a void where faith once lived. Reimer's crew is breaking, their hands trembling, their eyes hollow with disbelief. The 88, their god, is silent, its barrel glowing red, warped from heat and futility. "Load!" Reimer screams, his voice a raw, desperate plea. Keller, the loader, fumbles the 24th round, a Panzergranate 39, his fingers slick with sweat and blood from a split knuckle. Schmitz, the gunner, hesitates, his hands frozen on the controls, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Miller, the spotter, has abandoned his binoculars, staring at the iron will as if it's a nightmare made steel. The breech slams shut, the 88 roars one last time, and the shell strikes the jumbo's frontal armor. The screech of metal is deafening, sparks flaring like a dying star, but the tank doesn't stop. It lurches forward, 5 meters now, its 76mm cannon swiveling with deliberate menace. Inside the iron will, Staff Sergeant William Haines feels the weight of every hit, the 24th shaking the tank like a boxer's final blow. The interior is a hell of heat and noise, the air choking with the smell of oil and fear. The crew is silent, their faces pale, their hands steady only through sheer will. Corporal Joe Kowalski, the driver, keeps the tank moving, his eyes fixed on the 88's position. Private Eddie Malone, the gunner, loads another high-explosive shell, his hands trembling but precise. Private Jimmy Walsh, the bow gunner, sprays machine gun fire, pinning German infantry who dare to peek from their trenches. Private Tommy Russo, the loader, wipes sweat from his eyes, his arms burning from the effort of reloading. "Sarge, they're done," Russo mutters, his voice a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. "Not yet," Haines replies, his eyes locked on the periscope. The 88 is a dark shape in the fog, its crew scrambling like men facing judgment. The Jumbo's mission, hold the crossroads at Krinkle to cover the 12th Infantry's retreat, is almost complete. The infantry is falling back, their lines holding thanks to the iron will's defiance. But Haines knows this isn't just about the crossroads anymore. It's about breaking the enemy, about showing them that their 88, their myth, is mortal. "Malone, hit him," Haines orders. The Jumbo's cannon fires, the shell exploding just feet from the 88's base. The blast sends snow and shrapnel flying, and Reimer's crew ducks, their nerves shattered. The iron will is 3 meters away now, its hull filling the German crew's vision, a wall of steel that defies everything they know. The 88's barrel, overheated and strained, can't fire again. Not yet. The recoil has bloodied Schmitz's shoulder, and Keller is on his knees, gasping for breath. Reimer stands alone, his hands clenched into fists, staring at the tank as if willing it to die. The civilians of Krinkle, huddled in their cellars, feel the earth tremble with each explosion. The 88's thunder is gone, replaced by the Jumbo's relentless growl. An old man, his hands shaking, whispers to his wife, "Es ist vorbei." It's over. The American infantrymen watching from their cover see the German line falter. "That tank's a goddamn angel," a sergeant mutters, his voice thick with awe. The Iron Will has taken 24 hits, its armor scarred but unbroken, and it's still moving. The 12th Infantry rallies, their retreat turning into a stand, their fear replaced by a flicker of hope. Reimer's mind is a storm of doubt and defiance. The 88 was his certainty, his truth. He's seen it destroy tanks, shatter armies, turn battles into slaughters. Poland, Russia, France. The 88 was the Reich's answer to every question. But now, facing the Iron Will, that answer is a lie. German intelligence, slow and arrogant, has only just acknowledged the unidentified variant in their reports. A Sherman with armor no 88 can pierce. The news hasn't reached Reimer, but he doesn't need it. The truth is 5 meters away, rolling toward him, its cannon lowering like a judge's gavel. "Schmitz, fire!" Reimer shouts, his voice breaking. Schmitz shakes his head, his hands limp on the controls. "The barrel's done, Herr Oberleutnant," he whispers, blood trickling from his nose. The 88 is overheating, its mechanism strained to breaking. Keller, on his knees, looks up at Reimer, his eyes pleading. Miller is gone, vanished into the fog, his nerve broken. Reimer stands alone, staring at the Iron Will as it closes the final distance. 2 meters. The tank's tracks grind to a halt, its engine idling, a low, mocking hum that fills the silence. The Jumbo's cannon fires, a high-explosive shell that lands at the 88's base. The blast is deafening, the shockwave knocking Reimer to his knees. Schmitz screams, clutching his arm as shrapnel tears through his sleeve. Keller scrambles backward, his hands raised in surrender. The Iron Will looms over them, its hull a testament to survival, its presence a judgment. Reimer stares at it, his world collapsing. This is not a tank, he thinks. This is the end. And then, the unimaginable happens. Schmitz, the gunner who never missed, abandons his post. He stumbles from the 88, his hands raised, his face pale with terror. Keller follows, dropping the round he was holding, his breath coming in sobs. Reimer stands frozen, his hands trembling, his eyes locked on the Iron Will. The tank doesn't fire again. It doesn't need to. Its presence is enough. A machine that has taken 24 hits and lived. A machine that has broken the 88's myth and Reimer's soul. The silence is heavier than the gunfire ever was. The Ardennes snow falls like a requiem, blanketing the shattered crossroads at Krinkelt in a silence broken only by the low hum of the Iron Will's engine. The M4A3E2 Jumbo Sherman stands motionless, a scarred titan, its hull bearing the marks of 24 88mm shells, dents, gouges, and blackened scars that tell a story of survival. The German 88mm gun, once the hand of death, is silent, its barrel warped and smoking, its crew broken. Oberleutnant Hans Reimer kneels in the snow, his hands trembling, his eyes fixed on the tank that destroyed his faith. The Iron Will looms, its cannon still, its presence a judgment heavier than any shell. Inside the Jumbo, Staff Sergeant William Haines exhales, his breath shaky in the stifling heat of the tank's interior. The crew is silent. Corporal Joe Kowalski, Private Eddie Malone, Private Jimmy Walsh, and Private Tommy Russo, each man staring at the walls of their steel fortress, their faces pale with exhaustion and awe. They've done the impossible, held the crossroads, covered the 12th Infantry's retreat, and faced an 88mm battery that should have killed them. The tank's armor, 7 inches of Michigan steel, is a patchwork of violence, but it held. We held, Haines thinks. His heart still pounding. We're alive. The silence stretches, broken only by the distant crunch of boots as the American infantry advances, their rifles raised, their voices a mix of disbelief and triumph. That tank took it all, a lieutenant whispers, his eyes wide. It's a goddamn miracle. The civilians of Krinkle, emerging from their cellars, stare at the Iron Will with something like reverence. An old woman crosses herself, murmuring, "Ein Wunder." A miracle. The German crew, what remains of it, is gone. Schmitz and Keller fled into the fog, Miller vanished, and Reimer kneels alone, a man defeated not by shells but by the weight of his own doubt. Weeks later, January 1945, Reimer surrenders to American forces near Bastogne. He's a shadow of the man he was, his uniform tattered, his eyes hollow. In a quiet moment, questioned by an American intelligence officer, he speaks of that day at Krinkelt. It was the day the 88 lost its soul, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. We fired until the barrels burned, until our hands bled. It shouldn't have lived, but it did. The officer, scribbling notes, doesn't understand. Reimer's war ended not with his surrender, but with the Iron Will's relentless advance. A machine that broke more than his gun, it broke his belief in certainty. Haines and his crew survived the war, returning to a country that barely knows their story. The Iron Will, one of 254 jumbos built, is repaired and sent back to the front, its scars painted over but never erased. In a bar in Ohio years later, Haines sits with a beer, telling a friend about that day. Every hit was like a hammer, he says, his voice low. But we kept going. That tank, it wasn't just steel, it was us. He doesn't mention the fear, the moments when he thought they'd die. He doesn't need to. The Iron Will's survival is his proof, a story etched in every dent and scar. The battle at Krinkelt fades into history, a footnote in the larger story of the Ardennes. But its impact lingers. The Jumbo's existence, a rushed design by Major Glaydon Barnes, changes the battlefield. American tank crews, once terrified of the 88, begin to believe they can survive. German gunners, once certain of their dominance, whisper of ghost tanks, machines that defy their guns. The 88, the Reich's god of war, loses its divinity, its myth shattered by a single tank that refused to die. The civilians of Krinkelt rebuild, their village scarred but standing. The American infantrymen, the 12th Infantry, carry the memory of the Iron Will into their next battles, a flicker of hope in a war of attrition. For them, the Jumbo is more than a tank. It's a promise that endurance can outlast destruction. For the Germans, it's a warning. Strength mocked becomes faith broken, and faith broken becomes surrender. Years later, historians pore over reports piecing together the story. The German field manuals, outdated and arrogant, underestimated the Sherman's evolution. The Jumbo, with its improvised armor, was a surprise the Germans never saw coming. Its real weapon wasn't its 76mm gun, but its ability to endure, to absorb the 88's fury and keep moving. It was psychological shock, a machine that turned fear into awe, doubt into defeat. The war was already ending in December 1944, the Reich's collapse inevitable. But the Iron Will showed how it would end, not with a single battle, but with the breaking of belief. Reimer, in his post-war years, never fires a gun again. He works as a mechanic, his hands steady but his eyes distant, haunted by a tank that shouldn't have lived. Haines, back in Ohio, keeps a photograph of the Iron Will, its hull scarred but proud. A reminder of the day they became more than men. They became a legend. The moral is clear, etched in steel and snow. They believed the 88 could kill anything. But on that winter morning, belief met steel. And lost. The Jumbo didn't just survive, it changed what survival meant. Because sometimes endurance is louder than fire. They fired until the barrels went silent, but the tank never stopped. If you love true WWII stories where belief meets reality, subscribe for more untold chapters of history.